Hi everybody, this is notes from the 7th grade Common Core, lessons 8.1 and 8.2. You need to be familiar with some vocabulary. You need to understand that circumference is the distance around a circle. You need to understand that the diameter is the line that goes directly through the center of the circle, and the radius is the line that goes from the side of the circle to the center, which is half of the diameter. You need to be familiar that the diameter is equal to 2 radiuses, which means the radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. You can use either formula, circumference equals diameter times pi, or circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. I'll typically use the first one. You need to make sure that you're familiar with that when using pi, we typically use the decimal 3.14. We use a rounded version of it. And then when you're using a fraction, we can use 22/7. In the first two examples, you are using what you know about a circle. In the first one here, it asks for the circumference. I start with the formula. I know the radius is 2, therefore the diameter is 4. So I simply go ahead and I multiply 3.14 times 4. The more you use them, the more you'll know some of the more basic ones, and you'll know that that's 12.56 centimeters. If you were given the circumference, you can therefore go back and solve an equation to find the radius. So be familiar to be able to work both ways. When given the diameter and the radius, you can find circumference. When given the circumference, you can find the diameter and radius. So you need to be able to work both ways with those. In example 2, you're finding the perimeter of a semicircle. So I start with finding the circumference of an entire circle, which means I'm multiplying 3.14 times 6. 6 is the diameter because 3 is the radius, so 3.14 times 6, and that circumference is 18.84. Now that I'm finding that perimeter, I go ahead and take half of that because I only have this part, and that part ends up equaling 9.42, and then I have to add on 6 because that's the bottom part of the half circle, the semicircle, and that's yards. They're all distances, so they're all yards. So I found the full circumference, I took half of it because it was a semicircle, and then I added on the bottom part for 6. Example 3 is pretty similar, because in this, I can also find the circumference, pi times diameter. So pi times diameter being 8, so 3.14 times 8. If I were to have a full circle, it would be 25.12. I don't. I have 75% of one. And 75%, or 3/4 of the circle, has a circumference of 18.84. And I can do that by taking 25.12, dividing it by 4 parts, and then multiplying it by 3. I just did it by 0.75. And this is inches. And then I have to add on these 2 parts of the circle. So I have to add on 8. So I get 26.84 inches. Examples 2, 3, and 4 are considered composite figures, and composite figures are made up of other figures. So example 4 is made up of a square and 2 semicircles. Those 2 semicircles, if we were put together, they would go ahead and be a full circle, so I can find circumference of that. Circumference equals 3.14 times the diameter of 8. I did that up there, and that I already know that that's 25.12. So that represents these 2 outer parts. And then because it's a composite figure, I have to add on 16. So I'm going to take that 25.12 plus my 16 for an answer of 41.12. I didn't put units on it, so let's make them up as millimeters. All distances. You need to be familiar with these formulas. You need to be familiar with working back and forth between perimeter and circumference, radius and diameter. Please make sure you're writing down notes. Make sure that you're coming in familiar with these examples and prepared with any questions. Thanks. Have a good one.